Welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. We're excited to have Chris Naugle on board, and you heard a little bit about Chris. We'll let you tell a little more about yourself once we get started, Chris, but we're super excited to have you. The topic tonight, be your own bank, take back control. Super excited about this topic and super excited to have Chris. You may have heard Chris here and there. I know Chris, I've heard and seen your name a lot. And so we're super excited about this topic. It's timely. And it's one of the topics that we feel is very important for our students. So we're excited to have you. Let's get started and do a quick intro. Just some different items to cover. We have a lot of webinars coming up, guys. So you see a few past webinars on here. We had some good ones last few weeks, including, Kevin, Kevin O'Leary. Chris, we actually had Kevin O'Leary at one point from Shark Tank, which is pretty cool. How about that? That's on our YouTube channel, guys. So take a look at that. Pretty fun. We did an IRA, so self-directed investing IRAs, and this is an important one. If you haven't seen that, everybody make sure and go. This, including other webinars we do, usually is on our YouTube channel, Protect Wealth Academy. Go there and sign up and make sure you subscribe. We always suggest that. Usually we keep them on there for at least 30 days, some of them longer. And of course, a lot of you know we just finished up our summit last week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's our 3-day asset protection summit. This is our premier event. And gosh, what a great class. We do these about every 6 weeks, and we always have new topics and new items. Doesn't matter if it's the same speaker. Tax items change, tax laws change. And some of the strategies Clint Coons taught on asset protection were just dynamite. Something I hadn't heard for protecting your real estate. So if you haven't seen that, we strongly suggest you jump on there. Some of the best speakers. I know I'm biased, guys, but there's nothing better than our 3-day asset protection summit. We've been teaching this about 20 years. And if you want to know the legal and tax strategies, some of the wealth strategies for building, protecting, and growing your wealth, 3-day asset protection summit, June 12th through 14th and July 17th through 19th. These are live streamed. Sign up and it's free. Love to have you. Okay, and also I love these little tax tips. Don and some of the team here have been working on those. There's some great tax tips on our Facebook page. They're incredible. Some of these are right from the IRS that we had to dig through a little bit and find. Some of them are from our tax advisors, stuff you never thought of. So kind of fun. If you want to save some money, the way to do it is to save on taxes, and that is truer than anybody else it can understand. If you are trying to save money, taxes is one of the biggest black holes. You've got to plug that black hole, and we got some great strategies for you. Okay, and Chris, we always do a disclaimer before we start. We're an asset protection and tax team, so always a disclaimer. We're not giving specific legal, tax, or financial investment advice tonight. If you're looking for that, look for financial professional like Chris and maybe someone from his team. They can reach out and help you directly. But Chris, so excited. Be your own bank, take back control. This is a really good topic. And, Chris, we met a few months ago, and, I guess that you're the America's #1 money mentor. I looked that up online and saw a lot about you, and I believe it. I've watched some of your videos on YouTube, and Chris has a lot of experience. I take it with real estate, investing. Maybe you can tell a little bit about what you did, including, was it on HGTV and different channels? So you've done a lot. We're super excited to have you on tonight. I'll let you go ahead and take control of the screen there, Chris. And did you want to do a Q&A at the end?
Yeah, well, I can, if anyone wants to chat in questions, I do this every single week. So I'll pay attention to the chat if it gets crazy, because we do have a little over 200 people so far and it's climbing. So if you use the Q&A, I'll make sure I get all of those. And, when I'm on a specific point, I'll hit it right there, or I'll hit them all at the end. Whichever works for your audience, I'm happy to do that, because there will be questions.
Whatever works best for you, Chris. They kind of do it both ways. And if you're comfortable answering throughout, we love that too. So I love it. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here. If you have anything you need, I'll be in the background, myself and Don, and happy to help you. But thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. And then if you want to just give me the ability to share my screen, and then I'll kick it off right from there.
Yeah, you should have the ability now. Go ahead.
Let's see here.
Should, knock on wood.
Not yet. I think it looks like there might be
Let's try this. Let's see.
maybe another screen is shared and it won't let me go over that one.
Let's go this. Let's just do this. Let's see if that works. Try that again.
All right.
It's
Let's see.
technology, Chris.
Oh, there we go. Now we
There you
got
go.
it. Perfect. All right.
right.
So let's see. All right. Can you see the screen says BYOB?
BYOB, I like it.
All right. Fantastic. Well, before I hit that screen here, let me actually just start by, just kind of talking to everybody a little bit. I appreciate being here tonight. I travel all over the country. I used to even can't travel into Canada, teaching what you're about to learn. And, I'll get into my background in a second, but I think the number one thing I want to preface that you're going to learn today is quite simple and very timely for that matter. What you're going to learn is you're going to learn how to take back control of this, your money. And it's a very important thing right now, more now probably than ever before in many of your lifetimes because of all the stuff going on. We're at the end of several cycles, the long-term debt cycle, short-term debt cycle, technology cycle. Whether or not that means anything to you or not, it should, because it really means we're at the end of something that we've gotten so comfortable with, something that we've gotten so used to, and really what we've been taught our whole life about money. If you read kind of the write-ups about tonight's training, it was really all about you taking back control of your money. Because the main thing we've been taught to do throughout our life, and I don't care, what your financial status is, it's the same for every one of us. We've been taught to go out and work for this. We've been taught to trade hours for dollars. And many people never get out of that cycle. They continually trade hours for dollars. They take the money they make, and then they do the normal things that most people do. They put the money in a traditional bank. They put the money in CDs, 401ks, all sorts of things. I'm not saying anything's bad about that, but what you have to understand is all of those actions require some form of giving up control, especially the banks. I really want to focus on them because if you've been watching the news, I don't care if it's Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic Bank. I mean, I could keep going at Credit Suisse, all of them. There's some problem right now in the banking system. And we've seen similar things during the Great Recession, but now it's all resurfacing. Not trying to scare you, I'm just trying to bring it to light because what I'm going to teach you tonight is very simply how to take back control of your money and also how to mimic what a bank does with money, how to literally take back the banking functions in your own life and in your own family. And I do that by teaching you how to become the bank. So now if I can share my screen here, you can see this little funny thing and we just start this. This is kind of the opening line, BYOB. Now, some of you know that to be other things, but in my world, we call that how to become your own bank. And becoming your own bank is very simple. This is not something new. What I'm going to teach you is not something I came up with. It's not something, that's brand new. It's certainly not a get rich quick thing. Okay. Everything I'm going to show you is actually a slow build. So if you're somebody looking for a get rich quick scheme or a get rich quick thing, I'm probably not a good fit. But what I am going to show you is something that all the wealthiest families in history have used and known about. Not just the wealthiest families, most Fortune 100, 500 companies have used this and still do today. Just to give you just a quick preface of the names of these families I'm referring to would be the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. You could go to Walt Disney. You could go to Ray Kroc. You could look at Doris Christopher from Pampered Chef. You could look at Warren Buffett in a roundabout way, but he's kind of a whole nother level higher. Then you could even look at the sitting president, McCain, while he was alive. We could look at JFK. I could go on for a long time, but those names, the only thing I want you to understand, those folks and those families were pretty wealthy. And what I'm going to show you is what they learned a long time ago. They learned how to change one thing. Literally, like what you're going to learn is how to change one thing. And that is where your money, not all of your money, but specifically the money that you would traditionally save, where that money would have to go first in order for you to get control. Now, after it goes there, this is where a lot of people make the mistake. They think once they change where the money goes, and we'll get into that in just a bit, they think that the money's got to sit there. That is absolutely not what I'm going to talk about. All we're going to change is the foundation of where your money goes first, and then we're going to reposition that money anywhere any of you want. I understand that this audience is, we got some high net worth individuals on here. We got some real estate investors. We got all different folks from different walks of life. So whatever your flavor is, whatever it is you invest in, whatever it is you know, like, and understand, what I'm going to show you is simply a stopping place where your money goes first, and then it moves on to the next place of where you want it to go. And as I get into this, a lot of people, when I show you a few things, are going to think that this sounds too good to be true. But I assure you it's not. And I'm just going to show you a quick video to kind of give you a funny little snapshot of what it is we're going to learn. So we'll take it away from here.
Get out of here. I'm not banking with you, not you, not you. Nope, nope. I'm gonna be my own bank. I'm not banking with you. Uninterrupted compound interest. Start your infinite banking policy today. Bye-bye, big banks.
So in there was a couple things that were said, and one of them was the infinite banking concept. So in today's world, we might know of what you're going to learn as the infinite banking concept. It was pioneered by the late R. Nelson Nash in his book, Becoming Your Own Bank. And back in the late 90s, early 2000s, he really brought what all those wealthy families were doing to light. He took this process, and I do want to explain that. A lot of people, when they hear infinite banking concept, they think of a product, but it really is not a product. It is a process. It is a process of mimicking what banks do so you can take back the banking functions. And I always like to talk to audiences like this and call you the 5%ers, because you really are. I mean, right here, I'm in the East Coast, so it's about 8:42, wherever you're at in the country, it's pretty late. And what's unique is you're all here to learn something new. And to learn something new, you're all willing to invest your time, your energy. Some of you would be, investing money, whatever, in different events, but you're all here giving up what I call the most precious resource we all have, and that's your time. So I want to say thank you to every one of you for giving me your time and trying to learn something new. So you are the 5%ers. But the thing about that number, the 5%, is if I didn't put some substance to it, you really wouldn't understand what I mean by that. When I say 5%, this is what I'm referring to. This is Social Security Administration, and this is a statistic that they put out that out of 100 people, only 5 of them, or 5%, will be financially secure. Now, maybe you've heard about this, or maybe this is the first time you're seeing this, but that's crazy. We live in the United States of America, the land of opportunity, the greatest country on earth. There's more opportunity here than just about anywhere else. How can that be that only 5 out of 100 people are going to be financially secure at the age of retirement? To me, that means something's got to change. It doesn't mean the system's got to change, because clearly that's probably not going to happen, but it means we need to change. The way we think about money, the way we use money, and the way we make money work for us, that is what needs to be changed. Because if you don't change that, well, if you've ever listened to Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret in the World, you might remember this part. He goes in and explains this study that was done where they took 100 25-year-olds and they did a study, and they asked them all if they were going to be successful at the age of retirement. And this is a funny little study, and this was done a long time ago. What do you think the answer was? Every one of those 100 eager, optimistic 25-year-olds all said they're going to be wildly successful. They're going to be multimillionaires and maybe billionaires, who knows? But they all said they were going to be successful. Well, they followed these 25 eager, optimistic guys and gals along until they hit the retirement age. When they hit retirement, a funny thing happened. Only 5 of them, only 5% of them were actually successful. And what Earl wanted to know is he was on this pursuit to find out what is the difference between success and failure. And it all boiled down to one thing. And I thought this was fascinating. That one thing is that the 5 successful individuals that made it, all they did different is create. They created their financial future. They created their dream. They created their businesses. They created their path. And because of that, and because they didn't listen to other people telling them they couldn't, other people telling them they shouldn't, they succeeded because of creation. Then when you look at the other 95% of them, or the 95 that didn't succeed, what happened? They conformed. They conformed to somebody else's failed reality, somebody else's failed dream, and somebody else's failed plan. Think about it throughout your life. How many times that you've had an idea, your dream, that somebody's tried to rain on that parade? And it's usually the people closest to you. That's happened to me a lot. But if you just push through and you create, you will always live out your dreams. But if you conform to other people's realities, failed realities specifically, typically, you're going to stay right where you're at. So what I'm going to show you today is going to require you to think differently about money. And if you can do that, and you can change just one thing, this concept that I'm going to teach will change your entire financial future. And I'm not saying that just as a cliche thing. I truly mean that, and you'll see how that works. But before I do that, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about my past. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because it can get pretty deep, but I didn't grow up any different than many people or many of you. I grew up in a lower middle class family. My dad was an alcoholic and my mom had to raise me. Now I know that might not be the norm and that might not be any of your norm, but you know what? That was mine. And it was a huge struggle for my mom. And the one thing I remember is my mom always teaching me to dream. And she always told me never listen to people that don't believe in your dream. My mother was a big believer in my dream, so much so that when I was 16 years old, I had this idea. Okay. Well, it was an idea that kind of came out of a little circumstance. You see, when I was younger, I worked on a farm. And then when I was 16, I got a big boy job at a restaurant. But the owner of that restaurant treated me so badly that I became clinically depressed. So bad that one day I came into work, he started in on me, and I said it. I always wanted to, but I finally said it. I quit. What I didn't know is that I quit right there in that moment at 16 years old was the time in my mind where I said, I'm never going to work for somebody again. So driving home to see mom and tell her, Mom, I just quit my first real job. I needed a backup plan, right? Because you always got to have a backup plan. And I said, hey, Mom, I quit my job. I know, but I want to start a clothing line in the basement, and it's going to be called Fat Clothing Company, PHAT. Back in 1992, that was a cool phrase. And there you have it, my first business. I became an entrepreneur at the age of 16. This is 1992. I started printing t-shirts with my art teacher, selling them out of my backpack in high school, got some sales reps, my friends in high school, to also sell hats and t-shirts out of their backpacks. By the time I was 17, I was on my way to becoming an amateur snowboarder, traveling around, competing at events, and I started meeting other shop owners. I then would ask them, would they carry my clothing in their store? And they did it. Well, I'm at this one store one day, and I'll never forget the guy. It was called Hardpacked. It was the name of the store. He bought some of my clothes, which I was excited about. And then he says this to me. He says, you want to go snowboarding? And I'm like, of course I want to go snowboarding. I look around. We are the only ones in the shop. So I'm thinking, all right, what time do you get off work? Because I kind of got to get back home. And he says, no, we're going to go right now. Now, this was a foreign concept. I'm 16, maybe about to turn 17, and this guy's just going to close his business to go snowboard? You see, I never understood that level of freedom in a business or in a job. You couldn't just leave the job. You couldn't just shut it down and walk out and no one get mad, but he did. So you can only imagine what happened to this eager, optimistic 16-year-old that I was back then. I had to have my own store. So I went around raising money or trying to raise money from all my family members and all the people I knew. And what do you think happened? They all told me I was crazy. My father basically told me, kid, you'll shoot your eye out. Everybody told me that my idea was silly, stupid, immature, and that I'd lose everything. All except for one person. And I call her the unconditional one in my TEDx talk. And that person is my mother. She believed in me. So what my mom did was actually something really crazy is when she saw my dream dying, I had one bank tell me that if I could get collateral to back up this SBA-backed loan, they would give me the loan for this crazy idea to open Fat Man board shops, again, PHAT. I didn't have any collateral. I had a 1996 KX 125, a Buick Skyhawk, and a baseball card collection. They weren't really buying into that. But what my mom had is the house she got in the divorce, a 2-bedroom, 700 square foot house in Lockport, New York, a suburb of Buffalo. My mother put her house, the only thing she had, up for collateral so that her punk snowboard kid could chase his dream. And Fat Man Board Shop opened November of 1994. Now things got real. You see, that's where everything started to change because my first dream had become reality, but now I needed to make sure mom and I weren't homeless sleeping at the store in the back room or wherever we'd be. So the next step that happened is I started expanding these stores, learning how to run a business, learning on the fly. And I'll never forget, Things were doing really well. I was literally living a dream. I became a pro snowboarder. I'm running all these shops. Things are getting better and better. And then all of a sudden, I remember driving to work one day, my brand new shop. At this time, I had 3 stores. And on the radio, I heard about a plane hitting a tower and then another. We all remember that. And you probably remember exactly what you were doing and where you were. That was the start of 9/11. That's when the planes hit the tower. And then the recession hit. I'm 23 years old, there and abouts. Actually, I was 22 at that time. And I remember this being the very first recession that I'd ever felt the impact on. You see, I'd heard the word, but I never understood what it was. But what I understood is when my retail store's business plummeted and I just needed to go get a job. Little Caesars wasn't hiring, but I put my resume out, which fit on 1 page for the record, and I started getting calls from Wall Street firms. Think about that for a second. I'm a punk snowboard kid. I wear a hoodie and a beanie every day to my job, my business. And the only people that want me to come interview is Wall Street, where you have to wear a navy blue, a gray, or a black suit every day. So I went out and I interviewed, and I'll never forget the guy. He slides the keys to a Porsche down the table. He'd obviously watched Boiler Room. I'd never seen it. And he says, "Kid, if you work at this firm, you'll have one of those." What was I going to say? Sign me up. That was my entry into Wall Street. Now, in Wall Street, I was like a fish out of water. But I remember being very attentive and very alert to what was going on. I'm in the bullpen. My job was to take calls, pass them on to the people in the corner offices, the glass offices, I remember. I'd watch these guys come in. They'd get there 8:39 in the morning, leave for 2 hours on lunch, and then leave promptly by 4:30 or 5 o'clock. Well, I wanted one of those offices. So it made logical sense for me to just say, well, if I want one of those offices, all I got to do is get there at 7 o'clock, work through lunch and pound the phones. And when everybody leaves, I go out and see clients at their kitchen tables. Guess what happened? I became the #3 financial advisor at that firm. And I continued in that firm for 14 years. Then I left and created my own firm, where I then sold that firm in 2018. A lot had happened in there. During that time frame in 2008, when the Great Recession hit, I almost went bankrupt. You see, my retail stores that I was leasing, the lease came due and my rent went way up. So I said, you know what? I'm going to buy this dilapidated paint store, convert it into a 3-unit strip mall. This is in 2007. And I'm going to borrow some hard money to buy this thing. And this is going to be perfect. Because why should I pay this guy rent when my tenants can pay my mortgage for me? Great idea. But when 2008 hit, it brought me to my knees. And I remember that dreaded night when I knew I was going to go bankrupt. I had 1 payment left for these guys. I came home to my girlfriend right in the middle there. That's Larissa. She's now my wife. And we have a almost 3-year-old daughter named Vivi. But I remember sitting her down and saying, "Sweetie, I need your help. I need your help paying the mortgage. I need your help paying the utilities. Oh, and by the way, my friend Pete's going to move into that bedroom right down the hall. Oh, yeah. And Jessica, you remember Jessica? She's going to move in upstairs." As if the next question should have been, any questions? That was 2008. As you may have already figured out, she did help me. And it's the only reason I made it through. In 2009, I was reading Warren Buffett books. I was fascinated by the man, and I still am today. And I remember some simple rules of investing. And it was very simple. Buy low, sell high, and don't lose money. And if you do 1 and 2, 3 is an automatic. Buy low, sell high, and don't lose money. Now that seems so simple. So 2009, everything was on sale, especially real estate. So what I did is I started buying apartment buildings, pennies on the dollar. I did this to 2014. I had 36 units, got my 37th door, took it to the same bank that took me out of that hard money loan and funded all those other properties. And they said, no. They said, "Mr. Naugle, we love our relationship with you, but you don't fit in the little square box called debt to income anymore. So we can't give you this mortgage. Oh, and Mr. Naugle, I got some more bad news. We have to freeze your line of credit. Yes, I know you're using it to renovate those apartments, but we can't issue any more money to you." That was it. My ride up had now just hit a major roadblock. And guess what happened next? I was on my way back down. You see, at that point, I thought I knew what I didn't know. I thought I was smarter than I was. And because of one critical error, now all of a sudden, I was cash flow poor. And I couldn't continue, so I had to sell all those properties, and I went on a crazy spiral down. Everything started falling apart. I had to sell the dream house that me and Larissa had bought at 171 Radcliffe. The only reason I'm giving you this roller coaster of a story is I want you to understand, I've come from pretty close to nothing. I've made a bunch of money, then I've lost it all. And then I've made a bunch again, and then I've lost it all. A unique thing happened after that. I set out to really make a mark. And what that idea was is I was going to flip houses. No more of that buy and hold stuff where I ran into cash flow problems. I'm just going to buy them, I'm going to flip them, and I'm going to make a bunch of money. And we did. Me and Larissa set out on that journey in 2014. We also had another big dream, and that was to have our own show on HGTV, because while we were watching Tarek and Christina's Flip or Flop, we wanted that. So we set out on that journey, and lo and behold, after lots of work, perseverance, 2018, Risky Builders aired on HGTV. We aired 6 times. We even aired with our favorite people, Tarek and Christina, who we'd gotten to know. And then, as many of you may or may not know, Discovery bought HGTV. And in that transition, Discovery froze all new shows. Now, what I didn't tell you is, remember, I had this fancy, cozy Wall Street job where I made, heavy 6 figures. And now, because I got this TV show, I had to go to my compliance officer and ask for another outside business activity approval. And she said, no. She said, well, Chris, you got to make a decision. Are you going to be a financial advisor, or are you going to be a TV show star? Simple decision. Mike, guy that sat right next to me at our firm, you want to buy my practice? Perfect. Strike the deal. A couple months later, he bought my practice. I was out of Wall Street and I was set. I burned the boats because that's what you're supposed to do, right? But now the boats just blew up in my face because now HGTV was dead. I no longer had that as an option. And that led me to where I'm at today. This concept that I learned, that you're about to learn, came from a very wealthy real estate investor out in Salt Lake City. He was a guy that was lending me money. Huge developer, very wealthy. His name is Mike. I remember being in Salt Lake City snowboarding, and I met him out at a cheesecake factory downtown in the mall. And I remember talking to him about this deal, and I just asked him the question, Mike, how do you lend all this money? And he very quickly says to me, well, I lend it from my private bank. I sat back in my chair. I'm like, well, I had this all wrong. This Mike guy's got way more money than I thought. He's got his own freaking bank. And I just said to Mike, I said, so Mike, after we're done with lunch, you want to go over to your bank? And he then tells me, I don't have a bank. I just mimic what a bank does. I created a banking system. And he starts telling me about this banking system. So pay attention. Here's the things he said to me. Because I was a student. I was a financial advisor. I'm asking him all the questions. So this banking system, what does it do? He's like, well, I changed where my savings went. I don't keep it in traditional banks. I keep it in this other place. And this other place pays me guaranteed interest on my money on a contractual basis. I'm like, wow, guaranteed? That's like a word that we're not allowed to say in the financial advisory world. That's like a swear word around our world. Okay, so you got guaranteed interest. Perfect. What else, Mike? He said, well, my interest grows tax-free. I'm like, okay, so is it a Roth? He's like, nope. And not only that, every single year I get a dividend, and the dividend's tax-free. And then he keeps going with this. He's like, it's protected against judgments and liens. If I ever die, because he had 5 kids at the time, I think he has 6 now, there will be money that passes on to his family at a leveraged rate. She's telling me all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you are literally talking about what I would call the perfect investment, Mike. He drops a bomb on me. He then tells me, Chris, when you need money, I go into my private bank and I take a loan and I give that money to you. But you see, when I give that money to you, use 100 grand. I have 100 grand in my banking system. I take it out and I give you 100 grand. I still have 100 grand in my account earning interest and dividends. But yet you get the 100 grand and then you start paying me interest. So Chris, my private banking system enables me to get paid twice on the same dollar. I earn uninterrupted compound interest. I'm blown away at this point. I'm just thinking, okay, Mike, enough. Dude, I'm in the Wall Street world. I'm an advisor. Like, what is this? And he tells me, Chris, it's a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy from a mutually owned company that pays dividends. Right there, it was just like I just got hit by a truck. Because all I knew about whole life is it was a terrible place to put money. And the thing I wanted to know is, how is this even possible? Mike, you can't put money in a whole life and immediately take money out the next 30 days. It just don't work that way. He leans into me and he says, Chris, if it doesn't work that way, then how have I been doing it? I said to him, teach me, Mike. And he then tells me, I can't. I learned from this other guy, Brent. I couldn't get out of that cheesecake factory fast enough. I get in my car. I call Brent up. I said, Brent, I just met with Mike. He's telling me about this private banking thing, blah, 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 blah. Brent says, have you watched the 90-minute video yet? And I'm thinking, no, What 90-minute video? He says, well, before we get into a conversation, I'm happy to talk to you, but you got to watch the video. Now, remember, I want to preface at this point, I'm about 14 years as a financial advisor. I'm number 3 in the office. Like, I'm, in my eyes, in my ego, I'm the big shot. Now I got to watch a 90-minute video to learn about this private banking thing. Man, all right, I'll do it. The 90-minute video, when I watched it, I don't really know how to say it in words. It changed everything. When I watched that video, I saw what you're about to see in a second. And those things that I saw changed the way I use money forever. And after I watched that, I became a student. And as some people say, sometimes the student becomes the teacher. Because I took this concept pioneered by the late R. Nelson Nash, taught to me by Brent Kessler, my mentor, and I have just pushed the envelope and I have created what I've created today, which is a system that works for a lot more than just the things that Nelson did, but works really well for real estate investors. So as we kind of push through this, a lot of people, when they hear about that, they think, oh, this is some new thing. It's not new at all. It's in tons of books like Robert Kiyosaki's Second Chance. The big guy, Tony Robbins, it's in this book right here, Money, Master the Game, section 5.2. There's the all-time book, The Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. That's my 2 books on the bottom, Private Money Guide and Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, but those are just a few. So when you think this is too good to be true and you think it doesn't exist, then how is there so many books on the topic? Now, let me just peel you back for just a second. This bike right here represents just a regular bicycle, but it's got one thing changed. The one thing changed is the way that you ride it. Because this bike, when you turn the handlebars right, the bike goes to the left. When you turn them left, the bike goes to the right. Now, if all of you could ride this bike, great. But the thing is, none of you could. So tonight, the backward bicycle, it's a video on YouTube, would represent that one change in the way you use money. Mysteries of money come down to simple things. When I say, what is the definition of money? A lot of people answer the wrong way. It's just a means of exchange. Money for food, food for money, money for car, car for money, money for house, house for money. When I ask you what company uses compound interest in the world, you might say banks, you might say Wall Street, you might say insurance companies. None of them do. There's not a business in the world that uses compound interest. Banks charge you compound interest and you earn compound interest from them. They don't use it. Banks keep money in motion. When you make a deposit of the money you earn to the bank takes your money and sends it out to work for them. And because they do that, they make a spread. They pay you an interest rate and they charge you a higher interest rate in the middle, making a spread. That's the key to what we're getting into, because your dollars are worth the most today. Because of inflation and everything going on, they'll never be worth more than they are today. And taxes also will never be lower than they are today. So then that always leads me to ask people, why do you do what you do with money? See, I've already ridden the backward bicycle. I've seen how this works. So I ask people, why would you put money places where you can't have access to it? Like, for example, why would people put money in 401ks when they know about self-directed IRAs? Because self-directed IRAs give you control of your money. Regular 401ks, you can't really use that money unless you take a loan. It always baffles me as to why people do the things with money, but the answer is simple. They do the things they do with money because that's what they've been taught to do with money. They've never learned what the wealthy do. And that's exactly this. So if you're going to buy a car, let's just keep this simple. Because buying cars, in tonight's video, I'm going to teach you how to get all the money back for every single car you're ever going to buy, drive, and own. So if you wanted to buy a car, you can buy a car one of 4 ways. Pay cash, you can finance it, you can lease the car, or you can steal the car. There's only 4 ways to get a car. And if you were going to buy a $25,000 car for cash, well, then you'd have to save 25 grand in some place. We'll call it a traditional bank. So I'm going to basically pretend that someone on here is going to buy a car and they've got 25 grand in a really good bank paying them 4%. But you come into the bank and you say, I want to take that 25 grand out of this really good bank that's paying me 4% because I want to buy the car. And the banker says, how about this? How about our bank makes you a loan for 6% for 60 months, and we'll just use your 25 grand in the bank as collateral. Does that sound like a good deal for the person? Not at all. It sounds like a bad deal because you're paying 6 and you're earning 4 and paying 6. You're upside down. But if we run the math behind that, that isn't the case. You see, if you took the loan from that really good bank, your payment's $483, and over a 60-month time frame, you're at $28,999. Now, you would think that because your money at $25,000 making 4% would be less, but it's not. It's $30,525. And if we subtract the two, you've made $1,526. Now, I know this doesn't seem important, but it's very important because a lot of you were thinking that's a stupid thing to do because 6 minus 4 means you're losing 2. But that isn't the case. The compounding effect on that 25 grand, every year it's making more and more and more. The loan is on a declining scale and it's simple interest. So every payment you make on that loan, you're paying it down, meaning you're paying less and less interest, represented right here by this example. The money multiplier method, which is what I typically teach, consists of 3 things. A machine. Remember I said earlier, it requires you changing one thing, and that's where your money goes. Well, we got to change where our money goes first, and we're going to put it into a machine that's specially designed and engineered whole life, where that money then can go back to work. The second thing, you got to understand that this is not a race. This is not a get-rich-quick thing. It's going to take time. In order for this to really start to work, the magic number is 3 years. So for 3 years, you're not going to make anything. But after the 3rd year, every dollar you put into this machine, you're going to be able to take more out than what you put in. And the last thing, you got to know what you're using this for, because the goal is not to put money in the specially designed whole life and leave it there. The goal is to put it in and then take it out and make it go to work for you a second time, just like I explained with Mike. So the machine, I already told you, it's a dividend paying whole life insurance policy from a mutually owned company. But this isn't any normal whole life. You see, we have to design and engineer these to do what you're about to see. So the policies that you're used to, the policies I was used to, those aren't what I'm talking about. How we learned how to do this and how it was actually created is from banks. Traditional banks, if you have never really looked at them, they're the #1 purchasers of whole life insurance in the world. There's no one that buys more whole life. Matter of fact, the top 5 banks, as of a few years ago, had $75 billion in whole life. If you think that the banks are buying the same whole life that your brother-in-law tried selling you last week, you're wrong. They're designed and engineered backwards. And that's exactly how we design them, completely backwards. So when I gave that example of the car and the really good bank, I wasn't talking about a bank at all. I was literally talking about a specially designed whole life that would get you the same results. So in order to become your own bank, first, you got to really look at and study how a bank operates. And it's simple. Just this wheel right here shows it all. We take and we deposit money in a bank. And we do that because, #1, the money remains liquid. So if we need the money to go do a real estate deal, lend the money out, buy a car, pay off debts, we have access to that money. But when we put the money in the bank, the bank pays us interest. In this, I'm going to call it 4%. The ironic part about that is a couple of years ago when I did this, that would be a really good bank. Today, that's normal. The bank immediately takes that deposit and makes it go to work for them by loaning it out to people to buy a mortgage, okay, or a car, or maybe a home remodel or a debt consolidation loan. The bank always keeps that money in motion. And every single transaction the bank makes, the bank controls the money and takes very little risk in doing this because there's always an asset, in most cases, securitizing it. So if you look at these boxes, these all represent the spread that the bank made. The bank paid you 4, and they made 7, they made 8, they made 9, they made 12. All those spreads work out to be 20% if we add them up. But you made 4. So if we take the 4 and divide it into the 20, you'll see that the bank actually made 500% more money than you did on the deposits you leave there. The takeaway from this is exactly what the infinite banking concept is. If we just replace who the bank is, and if you become the bank and you start acting and treating your money the same way you treat the bank's money, you will have the exact same results and you will make a spread. Because banks make 400 to 1,300% on the money that you leave there. That's as of Bauer Financial. You can look up any bank to see that. This is one of my favorite things to show, and it's super simple to understand. If you look at the screen, it says how to get all the money back for every single car that you will ever buy, drive, and own. That's exactly what I'm going to show you. By changing one thing, and that's where the money goes first, and following one step, you will get all the money back for every single car you ever buy, drive, and own into the future. And that's the machine. We already just defined it. Okay, it's a specially designed whole life, but we look at the premiums as deposits. In the way we design them, age doesn't matter like it would if you were buying life insurance. And the death benefit is the only differentiator. We put the lowest death benefit on for the highest amount of premium deposits going in. So I'm going to give you a really simple example, and I'm going to use a design that is actually nothing even close to what we do today. So let's just assume you were going to buy a car and you wanted to pay cash. You'd have to save money. Now, most all of you on here, if not all of you on here, you are right now saving money. Now, I don't care where you're saving it, you're putting it somewhere, and What if you just changed where it went? So riddle me that you're going to take that and you're going to put that money into a specially designed whole life for this purpose, to buy a car. So we save $10,000 a year. And if you look over on the right, that would give you an example of a terrible design of one of these specially designed whole lives. You'd have $5,800 in the first year of the $10,000, which is not good, but just showing you the concept. And I wanted to use a bad example. By the third year, you would have almost every penny that you put in. And at that point, you find a car you want to buy for 25 grand. So you take a loan from the policy for 25 grand. So if you're looking at the screen, in the third year, it shows that your cash value is $4,204. But it's not $4,204. It's actually $29,204. That's how much money you're earning interest and dividends on. Because the 25 grand that you took to buy the car, that was the insurance company giving you a loan. And what is that loan? That loan is the insurance company advancing you part of your death benefit while you're living. The only thing your cash value does is serves as collateral for the loan the insurance company makes you. The insurance company does charge you interest on the loan, but it's simple interest. And the compounding effect, the $29,204 that you have in cash value, that continues to compound uninterrupted. So in this example, even though you took 25 out, you're still earning interest and dividends on the $29,204. But this isn't where it ends, because now we got to take and we got to use the infinite banking concept. And remember, I said it earlier, you got to treat your money the same way you would treat the bank's money. So in this example, what we would do, and I already showed you it, we would figure out how much a monthly payment would have been for a $25,000 car in this example with any traditional bank. Now, let's just assume that they're going to charge you 6%. Your payments would be roughly about $500 a month. At $500 a month, normally if you finance the car or lease the car, that payment goes to someone else's bank, which you don't have access to and you can never use it again. It's gone from your family forever. But because we changed who the bank was, and because we changed where the money went, when you make the payments, the $500, we're making them payment back to your policy as a loan repayment. So every payment you make for $500 in this example, that money's available the next day. So you get to use that money again, but you never lost the earning potential on that money. So let's put the math behind it, because I just like proving everything with math. For 7 years, this particular example shows somebody saving $70,000 in this policy. But when they did that, they also made $500 loan repayments back for the car, because remember, they treated their money the same as they treat anyone else's bank's money, and they pay their policy back. That's 30 grand. So if we do 70 plus 30, that's $100,000 that they put into their banking system. But they took 25,000 out to buy the car. So if we net that, the first 7 years, they had a net injection into their banking system of 75,000 bucks. So they also, in the driveway now, at the end of 7 years, have a bought and paid for car, fully paid for, sitting there, and that car has value. But if we look at how much cash value you have in year 7, you have 67,881, but you put 75,000 in, which means for that first car that you buy using this system, this example would show that you got 91 cents back for every single dollar that you ever paid for that car. Plus, the car is still yours, sitting in the driveway, and it still has value. But we're never going to just buy one car. We're going to continue to keep buying cars throughout our life. So the rule is usually every 5 years, people will buy a new car. So we're going to do the same thing. Year 8, we're going to buy another car, but we're not going to put any more premium deposits into the policy. We're never going to put any more money in this example. Now, I would never suggest somebody do that, and I'll tell you why. It's because the policy is so efficient at that point that every dollar you're putting in, you're taking more out than you're putting in. But it's simple math, and I wanted to show it this way. So year 8, we buy the second car. 25 grand comes out as a loan. Remember, that money never leaves your account. It's still in your account earning interest, but you take the loan from the death benefit. The insurance company charges you interest, so you calculate what interest rate you want to pay your bank back. How I do it, I literally go to a bank or look online and I find out what the going rate is. I charge myself the same amount. So again, using the $500 a month, what I would do is I would repay the policy loan on a monthly basis. It's literally like setting up a bill pay with your main account that you pay all your bills, except for every month you get a check in the mail made out to you for the $500. It's kind of the same thing. You're the bank, so therefore that's the way you're looking at it. The $500 a month goes back into the policy. So if we do the math, 0 went in this 5-year period on the second car. So you got 0 deposits. 30,000 was repaid back to the policy in policy loan repayments. And if we look at it, we bought a car. So that's 25 grand comes from that. So our true net injection for the second car is only $5,000. So if we look at year 7, the cash value was 67,000. Without making any new deposits into the policy, you now have 91,000 in year 12. That means your policy grew by $23,592. But you didn't make $23,592 for buying 2 cars. You see, you put 75 in the first car, you put 5 grand in the second car. If we add those, that's $80,000 that we put into our banking system total. How much money in cash value do we have in the 12th year? 91,472. So we made $11,473 for buying 2 cars. Both the cars are in the driveway, bought and paid for. I got a video on my YouTube channel, if any of you want to see it, that shows how I bought 3 cars. It's an older video. It was the first car was in 08, and then the last car was my wife's car that we bought her a while ago. The first car, I got about the same amount back, 91 cents. The second car was about $1.57 for every dollar I paid for the car. The third car, my wife's, we got over $3 back for every dollar we paid for that car. Why? It's simple. My money continued to compound every single year without any interruptions. And then I also was repaying my policy, the same monthly payment that I would have given to somebody else, back into my policy. So I see Jimmy's got a question here. He says, does it make sense to start this type of program in your 50s and 60s? Remember I said earlier, age doesn't matter. Almost all of our clients are in their 50s and 60s because that's where this makes sense. This a lot of times doesn't make as much sense for younger folks because they're just not at the point where they're saving money. As you can see, to do this is just a car example, somebody would have to be saving money. So yes, absolutely, Jimmy, it works incredibly well for people in their 50s and 60s. And I can even show you some math. Matter of fact, in a second, I'll do a bonus round because I know a couple people wanted me to get really into it. So I will, because now we're getting into the good stuff. But to do this car buying this way, it required you doing 3 things or following 3 rules. So I want to hit these 3 rules. Number 1, pay yourself first. That's a law of wealth. It's the first law of wealth, all the way back from the richest man in Babylon. You know, pay yourself first. So in order to do this, we had to pay ourselves first. Secondarily, we had to pay ourselves with interest. So when I made those payments back to the policy, I paid myself back with interest. I didn't cheat my bank because I would never, ever be able to cheat their bank. So I just treat it the same. And the third thing, I recycled and recaptured all the money that I used to leak, the money I used to give away. Now, a lot of people, when they're looking at where money goes, it goes to debts, credit card debts, car loans, mortgages, and things of that nature. Bad debts I'm specifically talking about. So if this works for a car, what else does it work for? Everything. My business partner bought a plane using this, and because he did, he'll get all the money back for the plane. We buy real estate using this. We fund our own real estate deals. Today, I don't do as much real estate. I mostly lend money out, and I lend every penny from my private bank, just like Mike did. So this is a unique one, and let me hit Gene's question here. Oh, Unanimous said, what about age 70? So 70 years old, Unanimous, gets tricky. Because at 70 years old, a lot of people have medical issues. And, you know, if you're super healthy at 70, it's game on. I've got a client, Claire, she's 74. We set this up for her. She has been lending ever since she set it up, and she's now on her second policy. But the only thing you got to factor in at that age is medical, because you do need to qualify for these policies. Real quick bonus round for Anonymous. Now, let's just say somebody is 70 and they don't qualify for one reason or the other. They just, you know, the health issues or something. That doesn't mean that you can't use this. Let's go and take the banks. How do banks buy whole life? Because a bank is an institution. A bank cannot buy a policy without having a life to insure. So if you've walked into a bank lately, you've probably noticed that there's a lot of vice presidents. There's a vice president of coffee. There's vice president of janitorial, vice president of lending. There's vice presidents of everything. Why? You probably never asked yourself that. Well, if banks are the #1 purchasers of whole life, well, they better have a lot of lives to insure. You see, when someone's promoted to a vice president, they become an executive of the bank. When they become an executive of the bank, they also become an insurable interest for the bank. So the bank goes to an insurance company, like the ones I'm talking about, and buys a policy on that brand new vice president. Now, they can't not give the employee something. The vice president has to get something because they have to have something out of this deal. So the bank typically gives them a fully paid up policy, And sometimes it funds their deferred compensation plan. Yes, all of that is usually done using specially designed whole life, or BOLI in that case. So the bank buys the policy on the employee, tells them they're going to fully paid up $50,000 or $100,000 death benefit. The bank uses that cash value, like I just showed, over and over and over again for all the things that banks do, and it satisfies their tier 1 requirement because it's guaranteed. Then when that employee dies, the death benefit's paid to that employee's spouse or whoever their beneficiary was. But you think that gets all the death benefit? No. If the death benefit paid out 100, there's probably $1 million or more that got paid back to the bank. That's how banks use this. So the same thing can be done for an individual. You could find somebody that you have an insurable interest in. Do you have a key employee? Do you have a business partner? Do you have a child? Do you have a spouse? If you can't get it, find somebody that you can insure, that you can be the owner. Because with ownership comes control, and that's what you want. Hopefully that answers that question. Got a couple other ones. Gene, how much is the insurance premium on these types of whole life policies? Is it based on age, any checking or health conditions? So I hit the checking health conditions, but let's just talk about the bare minimum that it would take to build a policy the way that I'm explaining. You would take your age, I'm 45 years old, and you'd add a 0 behind it. That's 450. That is my minimum monthly premium deposit. So if somebody's 70, their minimum is $700 a month. If someone's 40, it's $400 a month. That's the bare minimum. But what's the maximum? Well, it was earlier, I'm not going to use the name, but somebody that was mentioned earlier, a good friend of mine and somebody that I do a lot of business with, puts millions of dollars into their policies and puts it in, and immediately in the next 30 days takes it out and invests it in development deals. So it doesn't matter how little or how much, you just got to abide by that minimum amount. Hopefully that answers your question, Gene. And then Kathy said, is whole life the same? Oh, goodness. We don't have time to get into this one. Is it the same as indexed universal life? Absolutely not. I have at least 6 videos explaining the difference between whole life and IUL on my YouTube channel. I really would suggest you watch that. Now, I'm not saying IULs are bad, but IULs are more of a long-term vehicle. What we're designing here is a vehicle that's built for short-term and long-term, because we want to put money in and immediately take that money out and send it to work a second time. An IUL cannot do that because of the surrender charges and the way that it's designed. So if you're doing IULs, focus on long-term goals like supplemental retirement. And if you're doing what we're talking about, the infinite banking concept, putting money in and immediately making that money go to work for you a second time, you would only want to use specially designed whole life like I'm showing. Great question, Kathy. And then we got another question. Are you able to pull the entire amount at some point? If I may, I'm going to defer that question to right here because I'm going to hit that question. All right, so let's go into another example. On the screen, you see a bunch of numbers, and these are debts. You see, back almost 10 years ago now, a chiropractor sat in one of the audiences where we were speaking. And after we were done, he came up to us and he said, I need your help. And we said, okay, how can we serve you? And he said to us, he said, well, I watched your presentation and I think this might work for this, but I got a lot of debt. And we got into the debt. Here it was. These are his debts that he had. Okay, there was 9 third-party debts totaling $478,774, but that wasn't the kicker. The kicker was how much he was paying a month, $5,777 a month. So some of you can see the problem for this chiropractor. That's 69 grand a year going out the door to someone else. And he wanted the bleeding to stop. So we said to him, yes, I think we can help you. So let me ask you a question, sir. And this is to the chiropractor. How much money are you saving? Because remember I said, in order to do this, you got to be saving money. So after he calculated it out, he said, I'm saving roughly about $25,000. Some of it's going to a 401k. The rest is just going to various bank accounts. And we said, okay, sir, would you be willing to change where that money goes for a period of time until this problem is solved? He said, absolutely. So we then did some calculation. We said, all right, if we just take the 25 grand, we put all the debts in the proper order, which is called snowball, lowest balance to highest. And we said, let's just take the 25 grand and let's pay the debts down just using money from the bank account and see what that works like. Well, this is what it worked like. 19 years later, he would have been out of debt. When we told him that, he said, absolutely not. I cannot do that. I can't live like this for 19 years. So we changed one thing, and that one thing is where his money went first. We put it into one of these policies, and you know what happened? And well, what happened is what I'm going to show you. We paid all of his debts off in 6.5 years. So let's get into it. I'm going to go slow in the beginning so you follow what I'm doing. I'm going to go faster until the end. Fair enough? So year 1, remember all this guy did is changed where his $25,000 of savings went first. We put it into a specially designed whole life. So that represents the deposit number at the top, 25 grand. Now that 25 grand in that design gave him access to $14,863. That's roughly a little less than 60% of his deposits. Now, the person that asked about, how much can you take out? I want to be clear. This design is old. The new ones that we do allow you access in the first year to 80 to 90%, and that's immediately. So we put money in, we immediately have 80 to 90% available. This design, because it was an older one, we had less. But I want to get back to it. We put 25,000 into the policy, or the client did, and we immediately in the first 30 days, I want to repeat that, we immediately in the first 30 days took a loan from the policy of $14,863. And what we did with that loan is we paid off Discover, we paid off Lowe's, and we paid down Nordstrom. In doing that, he no longer owed Discover 161, he no longer owed Lowe's money, and they no longer owed this interest rate to either one of those debtors. So what we told him is we said, okay, what we want you to do is go to your bank, open up a separate bank account. We call it a segregated bank account. And what we want you to do is take and set up a transfer or a bill pay for the 161 plus the 287 and put it into that newly created bank account. This one comes from the Profit First, which is a book that I love. So that was $448. So now what I want you to know, he's no longer paying those Discover and Lowe's payments, but he's still making the payments because he's treating the money he was giving away the same way he wants to get that money back. So he's going to recycle and recapture it. $448 a month goes into that separate bank account. Okay, that's all that's happening. So year 2 comes by, and I want you to watch the numbers. Year 2, he puts 25,000 in, but now he can take 16,000 out. Every year we put money in this, you'll have more money to take out than you did the year before. It's just mathematics. It's compound interest. So he takes 16,000 out as a loan from the policy, but then he goes to that separate bank account, that segregated bank account, and he'd saved 5374. So if we add 16 plus the 53, we have 21,000 that we can use. And what are we going to do? We're going to take all 21 and we're going to pay off Nordstrom, Wells Fargo, the private loan, and we're going to pay down the BMW. And now, just like the first year, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to calculate how much these monthly payments were that we no longer have to make to them, and we're going to pay it back to his segregated account. So right here, he's no longer paying $57.77 to somebody else. He's only paying $38.60 to somebody else, represented by the red, but he's saving $1,917. That $1,917 isn't new money. He didn't have to work any harder for it, didn't have to work any longer, didn't have to take on any risk to get it. It's just him recycling and recapturing money that he used to give away to somebody else that now he's able to keep. So simple, but so many people miss this step. So if we go to the third year, and I mentioned this earlier, but now you're really going to see it. In almost every design we do, this is critical in the way it works, because the third year almost represents every time what we call the efficiency zone. You see, this chiropractor puts 25,000 into his policy, but now this year, immediately in the first 30 days, he can take 25,541 out. But it took him 3 years to get to the point where he can put money in and take more out. So he gave up essentially 2 years, almost 3 years. And now for every year, for the rest of his life, every dollar he puts into the policy, what he will be able to take out will be significantly more than what he put in. This is just the first year. So he takes a loan for 25,541. He was saving 1917 in that segregated account. Now, bear in mind that segregated account, that's just a bank account. If an emergency happened, he could just go in and take that money. It might push him to 7 years or 8 years to pay this debt off, but it's still liquid. All of his money is liquid now. So we have $48,000 in total cash, the loan in the bank account. So we pay off the BMW, we pay off the boat loan, we pay down the condo. So we are 3 years in. $2,100 now is all he's paying to somebody else's bank, and he's keeping $36.77 every month in that separate bank account. And his savings is going into the policy. So let's do a recap. I mentioned earlier that this is the marathon I referred to, the time it takes to make this work. He put 75,000 in over 3 years, 25 each year, put 75 grand in. But he took money out every year immediately in the first 30 days. Took 14, 16, and then 25. So he took roughly 55 grand out. How much money does he have left in his policy? I gave this away earlier, but many people would still do 75 minus 55 and say that there's $20,000 left. There isn't. There's still $75,000 left earning interest and dividends, because remember, the 55,000 he took out in loans wasn't his money. It was the insurance company advancing him part of his death benefit while he's living. So because of that, he's able to earn interest and dividends uninterrupted on all of the money he puts in the policy while still having access to use it. Let's carry on. Year 4, puts in 25. Again, you can see the number keeps going up, takes out 26,304. He was saving 3677 in that segregated account. That's 44 grand. Add them up, it's 70,439. So we pay down the condo. Now, this is a crappy year because when you pay down a like a mortgage on a real estate property, the monthly payment doesn't change. So we have no new money to recapture. So the savings remains at 3677 and we move on to the 5th year. So that's a boring year, but the 5th year is not. He puts 25 grand in, takes out $27,000 in a loan, has saved again 44,124 in the bank account. So he's got 71 grand. So year 5, we pay off the condo. So we're 5 years into this. The money we have to pay to someone else's bank is now only $1,221. The amount he's saving is $45.56. That's significantly more than where he started, and we're only 5 years in. He's completely changed the dynamic of whose money he controls and whose money he doesn't. He's only got his mortgage left. So we never ever stop there. We finish the game. So the 6th year is a bit weird. Now, this wouldn't be the case in today's policy designs. We'd be able to go 10 years. But back then when we did this, the IRS rule, which is called the MEC 7 pay rule, not going to get into that, but that requires us to build a plan where the death benefit needs to be sufficient to support the amount of deposits. Well, this client, this chiropractor, in the 6th year hit his MEC limit, which means the IRS said you can't put $25,000 in the policy anymore. We're only going to allow you to put $10,000 in because of how much death benefit you have in the policy. So the chiropractor was upset. He can't put the 25 grand in anymore. He can only put the 10 in. And then he does that, puts the max in, 10,000, and immediately in the first 30 days, had the ability to take $13,092 out. Now, let me just ask all of you something. If this is 6 years from when he started, he puts 10 in and he takes 13 out. But every year he's putting money in and taking all of it back out. How much is his return that year on the 10,000? It's over 30%. So his cash on cash return is over 30%. So he saw that and he's like, this is great. I need to put more money away into this. So just like every bank you've ever seen, there's never just one branch. Well, in your private banking system, you're probably not going to just have one policy. You're going to have multiple branch offices or multiple policies. I have 9 on myself, 3 on my wife, 2 on my mom, and 1 on my 3-year-old daughter, because I'm expanding my banking system. I want to put as much money as I can through my bank. And to do that, I have to have more than one policy. So the chiropractor starts his second policy, puts 25 grand in that. Total is 35 in. He takes 13 from the first, 14 from the second in loans. And then his amount that he saved in that segregated account, saving 45.56 is 54,000. So he's got 82 grand. 6.5 years later, this chiropractor is now debt-free. He's saving $5,777 every single month. So at this point, he would take that $5,777 and then do what with it? Not leave it in a bank account. He would change it and put it back into his bank, which is the policy, as a loan repayment to repay all of those loans he took over that 6.5 years. That's all he did. Changed one thing and added one step. And that one step is how he treated his money. You see, he did exactly what a bank does. And in doing that, he was able to pay his debts off. But that's a lot of numbers and a lot of math. So at our company, we do it all for our clients. This is our mapping team. We've got 4 people on our mapping team full time, and their only job is to work with our clients to put together the sophisticated maps to do whatever our clients want, whether it's paying off debts, buying cars, investing in real estate, lending on real estate, you name it. We build the map to do all the back end. It's kind of like a bank. Front end, you get the loan, back end or back office tracks the loan interest, and the profitability. To become a millionaire, it's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time, and getting to the top of a mountain is one step at a time. It's not possible to own no man, nothing. There's always taxes. There's always all sorts of stuff like vacations. You can use these policies for all of those. So with that, I just want to show you this, and then I want to do a really quick bonus round where I show you what policies look like today instead of like these older ones. But this chiropractor, if he paid that house the regular way, he would have given away $493,000 in 967 bucks on the back end. He would have given all that away to somebody else's bank. But because he changed who was the bank, plus his money earned more than 4%, but in these presentations, I only show 4, even though the policies he had paid him 6 with dividend. So at 4%, the guaranteed rate he had, he'd have $749,611. So I didn't talk about some things. I didn't really talk about the death benefit. I didn't talk about the loans that are being taken out never needing to be repaid, because the insurance company doesn't ask you for the loan to be repaid, because they're advancing you the death benefit, which they got to pay out when you die. So all they do is, if you take loans out and you never repay them, which you shouldn't do that, it's not what we teach, but if you did, the insurance company subtracts the loans from the death benefit and pays the net to your beneficiaries when you pass. The internal values are growing tax-free in all these examples because we build them properly under IRS code. The policies are exempt from judgments and liens in most states. You know, not to go here, but you know, Buffalo, O.J. Simpson got sued more than anybody else. If you look him up, he's still a multimillionaire. Good, bad, or indifferent doesn't matter. It's because he changed where his money went, or his advisors did. Buffett always says if poor people would just do what rich people would do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. So real quick, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to hit some of these questions. And then what I want to do is I then want to show you something that I've created to show you what a bigger policy or a policy that we designed would look like today. But Heidi said, can you convert your old whole life policy into an infinite banking concept? Here's the good news, Heidi. You don't need to convert it. Now, although it's probably built the wrong way, it still would work. Whole life policies are like wine. The older they get, the more efficient they get and the better they get. So I have two old whole lives. One I started in 04, one I started in 06. They were not designed like these policies were. We didn't build them for infinite banking. We built them just for a life insurance plan. But I still use them this way. They don't grow as fast. They're not as efficient, but it still will work. I would advise you never replace an old whole life. Just start a new one, and have it be the right way, because you've got time on your side, and time is the single most important thing for everything I'm teaching here. Let's see, I'd probably get the name wrong, but Tour, we'll just get into that. How is this lending tax-free? It's not lending tax-free, it's using the money tax-free. That environment, let's just say that was a bank account, okay? Let's just say you got a bank account that you're making 4% on today, a regular bank. When you make that 4% each year, at the end of the year, the bank is going to mail you a 1099 for the interest you earned. Now here, we changed where your money went for the savings component. Instead of a bank, it went into a whole life insurance policy that was designed a special way. Now that growth there, if it was just the same as the bank, 4% for 4%, you don't pay tax on the 4% interest inside of the policy. When you take the loan from the policy, you're taking a loan against your death benefit, which is paid tax-free someday when you die. So tax treatment is the exact same thing. As long as it's built within the MAC rules, the loans you take from the policy are tax-free, because in the code, it's basically saying the loans have to be repaid, which indeed they do, but they don't really have to be repaid until the day you die, if that makes sense. The money you make on the lending, like when you lend the money out. So I lend money from my policies. And actually, I want to show you that real quick as I answer questions. So I lend money from all of my policies, and I'm just going to share my screen here so that you can kind of see how this works. And when I lend money from my policies, there we go. From current slide. Perfect. All right, let me share this so you can see what I'm looking at here. So here's how it works. Think of a circle. Everything I just described for the car, for the debts, and for lending is one giant circle. Your money starts on the left, goes over to the right, solves a problem or invest it or whatever you do with it. I call that the opportunity. And then when you make money there, it comes back over to the policy. It's just one circle, just like here. I put money in the policy, I take it out, the insurance company charges me interest, but the interest they're charging is less than what I'm making. Okay, so there's your spread, and every year your spread gets bigger. Why? Well, because your money continues to keep compounding. I then loan that money. Now I put Private Money Club on here because that's how I lend money. It's a community of lenders and borrowers that I lend on, right? And I get anywhere between 12 and 18% when I lend money out in first lien position. This 12% that I make by lending money, of course I got to pay tax on that. So when that borrower that I lent money to pays me interest back, I got to pay tax on the interest. But what I don't pay tax on is all the internal buildup of the cash value that I earned. But then I take the interest and I put that back into the policy as a loan repayment. And then as that builds up, I repeat this process over and over and over again. Matter of fact, I can take you back and show you here. This is the same thing as a loan. If I put money into a policy, and this is actually one of my earlier policies, I put 25 grand in. I immediately took 23 out. I paid off a line of credit with KeyBank, which they were charging me 9%. I took the $289 I used to give KeyBank. I changed the name on the check and I paid it back to my bank. And that was a circle. I just keep going around the circle. Now, this right here is what I'm talking about for the new policies. This is kind of what one of the new policies might look like. We put money in, and then in the second year, let's just say I put $58.95 in. This example shows somebody putting $50,000 into the policy and then saving $491, which works up to be $58.95 a year. He was a young guy. He was 38 years old when we did it, so 39 is his second year. But if he put $55,895 in, and I apologize, it's not showing up on this slide. This is just an example. He puts $55,895 in. He had access to use $51,000. It was roughly about $92,000. So he would lend that money out at 12% or do something with it. The second year, he puts $58.95 in the policy. He has the ability to take $71.41 out. This is a big difference over the car example and the chiropractor, right? This is a real example of a real estate investor that we set a small policy up for. 50 grand went in, $58.95. Second year, you can take 71 out. If you just did cash on cash, not cumulative return, that's 21%. Same thing, it just keeps going up. Fifth year, you put 58 in, you can take 74 out. 58 in, take 91 out. See how the number just keeps going up every single year? These are 5-year blocks to save time, but I just wanted you to see that because that is what I'm talking about. That's the growth. So how is lending tax-free? The lending part, it's not tax-free what you're earning, it's tax-free what you're making on the money, and it stays in that environment. You're never going to beat the tax man, okay? And if you, well, I mean, if you got a good CPA or you work with these folks, they'll tell you a little bit about trust planning and all sorts of stuff that I've learned a lot about because I've done it myself with a complex trust. That's the only real way that I've found to have like a dial on my taxes. But I'm not a CPA or a tax professional. You got to use, the gentleman over at Protect Wealth to understand how that stuff works. Unanimous said, who are reputable insurance companies that sell those types of whole life policies? So there's not a lot of them. In the entire industry, there's maybe 10 companies. And out of the 10, we use about 5. I'll name off a few. The top one that we would use would be One America. Okay, they're about 140-some-year-old giant mutually owned insurance company. We use them. They fully support this model and this system. And that's one of the reasons why we've been using them over and over. And I can actually show you some numbers on how their policies look. I just created this video on YouTube today, which shows the different designs. I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of numbers, but I just want to show you one design that I just did. 45-year-old male puts in $50,000 and then puts in $10,000. So the first year puts in 90, can take $55,000 out the first year. The fifth year puts in $10,000, can take out $11,328. So when you're looking at the numbers, that's kind of how they're going to pencil out for the new designs that we do. Let's see. Some other ones would be Lafayette Life, another really good insurance company. They work really well for this. The two that I just mentioned, not to get technical, but they're non-direct recognition companies, non-direct recognition companies. All that means is when you put money in and you take money out, the insurance company does not recognize the loan, meaning they don't stop the interest and dividends that's paid on all the amounts. Some of the insurance companies, I'll name a few, Penn Mutual, Guardian, two great insurance companies that we use, those are direct recognition. So when we put money in and we take money out, it reduces the amount of dividends because they're going to recognize the loan and reduce the amount you're getting dividends on. So it is important that you work with the right insurance companies for this type of a strategy. Let's see, if I have a current whole life policy, can I convert it? We already hit that one. I would not do that. Elizabeth said, I've heard that there's a way to exchange existing insurance, but yeah, it's a 1031. It's like a 1031, but it's called a 1035 exchange. Just like the 1031 exchange in real estate, you can take an old policy, you can roll all the values over to a new policy and pay no taxes on the gains, called a 1035 exchange. So again, we totally can do that. And we do that, but we usually will never replace an old whole life with a new one. You're just working backwards because you're diminishing the time value of that money growing. These are really good questions. Anonymous said, if we've tried to get a whole life but couldn't qualify because of former health condition, cancer is a big one, can we get insurance through through one of these companies? I've tried it with my children, but they said we couldn't use children unless, great question. So he or she is saying they couldn't get a policy because the insurance company is saying they need to have insurance on themselves as the breadwinners before they buy policies on their children. You got a little bad information. Because you were denied a policy because of your health conditions, you indeed absolutely can take out a policy on your children. We would just have to show that you were denied in an effort, or just apply for a policy, get denied. The insurance company then will allow you to take a policy out on your children. And the rules, their ethics rules about taking policies out on children, if the parents or the breadwinners are not insured for more, those go away because you just can't do it. So wonderful question. Let's see what else we got. Norm said, can I make a large deposit? Yes. So Norm, if I may, and listen, if I'm running over, please just stop me. I'm just going to kind of keep rolling through some of the questions as long as I can go here. I want to show you one of the policy designs we did. And it was a woman who, her mother passed away. And when her mother passed away, she left her a large inheritance. And what we did is we took that large inheritance and we dumped it into a policy. And when we dumped it into the policy, that really made the policy incredibly efficient, because the amount of money going into the policy is like, well, it's like putting a tailwind behind a jet or a plane. All that money starts earning interest and dividends immediately, which really helps the plan grow early on. You've got to find where that one is. I've got so many of these things saved in here, I oftentimes forget where they are. Let's see, let's do this one. Here we go. So here's an example, and this is a small one, but I know there's a lot of numbers, but just follow along with what I say. This person had 100 grand. So they wanted to put 100 grand into a policy. This is Lafayette Life. And then they wanted to save $10,000 a year, because you can never just dump money in and not save after that. But we can front load it, which is called the dump in. They put 110 in the first year. They have access to 103,661. Okay, so that's roughly 94% access in the first year. So if this particular person put that 110 in, took 100,000 out and lent it out at 12% and made $12,000 a year, rolled that money back into the policy, they're off to a good start. The second year they put 10 grand in. In the second year in this design, they can take $10,691. And if I'm not mistaken, this person was in their early 50s when we designed this. And each year, third year, they put 10 in, they take 12 out. Fourth year, 10 in, 13,000 comes out. And it just keeps climbing. So let me give you another example of that big real estate developer. So that developer had money sitting in an account waiting to buy land. It was to the tune of $2.2 million. So they saw this, they saw a presentation just like you just did. And they said, okay, well, can I dump this $2 million into the policy? And then I said, sure, you can. And I said, how much do you want to save each year they're out? Well, they said, well, I don't want to put as much in, but what's the minimum? So we ran the math. The minimum for that particular client was $300,000. So they put 2.2 million in, and they every year had the ability to put an additional 300,000 in after that. So we built that plan. You know what they did? They put the money in immediately in the first, it was like 20 some days later, they took about $2 million out, bought the land, are working on the development, and they have the ability to put 300,000 in. That particular client has now started a policy on his wife, and I'm sure we'll do a lot more in that family, because it's just changing where your money goes. So those are just some examples. We've done multiple ones we work with a lot of real estate investors, developers specifically, and other real estate investors that want to move large chunks. Just had another guy do $1 million a year. So the numbers are really what you want them to be, Norm, or anyone else. We don't pick the numbers, you do. You tell us how you want it designed, how much you want the ability to dump in, how much you want the ability to put in each year. Now, one thing that a lot of you, that I haven't talked about, that a lot of you might be thinking, well, if I committed to $300,000 a year like that developer, what happens if I have a bad year and I can't put 300,000 in? That's a great question. If you put 300,000 in, that's the max you can ever do if we build it that way, but that's not the minimum. In that design we did for that client, I'm going to try to get close. It would be about, let's see, 75,000 to 100,000 would be the absolute minimum in the first 10 years that client would have to put in. So the minimum 75, the maximum for that example would be 300,000. That's the float, but that gave him the ability to put 2.2 million into the policy. Hopefully that answers your question, Norm. Anonymous, how much will the premium be, especially for 60-plus-year-old? Wouldn't one be paying a hefty premium? So you're looking at this all wrong. I feel like I covered this, but let me just hit it again. You're not buying a life insurance policy the way that you used to. The way you used to buy a policy is you'd say, hey, I want to buy a whole life. How much is a $100,000 death benefit? Folks, this is my shop cat. His name's Lazy Cash. He loves being part of every show. He's a ball of joy here. But anyway, that's not the way we do it. How we would do it is you'd come to us and say, hey, listen, I want to build one of these designs. I want to put $10,000 away each year. We would design your policy for exactly how much you want the ability to put in. Now, if you design it for $10,000 a year, that's not the amount you need to put in every year. That's the max you can put in every year. We then can reduce that down depending on the build. We could go as low as $1,000 a year. I wouldn't suggest that, but let's just say 2,500, 25%. So the fluctuation, you could vary the plan design so that 10,000 can be a minimum of 2,500. So again, don't look at it from an age standpoint. I did hit that. Look at this as you're building a private banking system. So we're going to design it backwards. If you look at this as an expense, if you look at this as a payment, don't do this. This isn't for you if that's the way you're going to look at it. At 60 years old, it doesn't matter. All you need to know is at 60, your minimum is $600 a month. That's it. It's the only thing you would need to understand with that. All right, let's see. Also, what is the rate of return? So the rate of return, that's what I was showing you here. So depending on how we look at it, the insurance companies are going to pay a guaranteed interest rate. So for example, this particular company I'm looking at here, the guaranteed interest rate for Lafayette Life is 2%. The guaranteed interest rate for Mass Mutual as well as One America, 3.25%. That's your lock, stock, and barrel guaranteed interest rate. But the dividend for this company takes you up to, I think they're at 5.2 right now, or maybe it's 5.3. The other one's 5.6. So you see after the dividend, you're in the 5% range, 5.2, 5.6. The highest one right now is 6%. But that's not it. You got to look at what that interest rate, compounded tax-free, works out to be. And these are the returns I gave you here on that one. So if we put 10,000 in and we can take 10,691 out, that's a 6.9% cash on cash return that year. The third year, if I put 10 grand in and I take 12,000 out, that was a 27.7% cash on cash return. So it just depends on how you're going to use the policy. If you're focused on just the return the insurance company's paying you, you're missing everything I just taught you, because it's about what you do with the money next. Remember, you shouldn't be excited about making 5.5%, but you should be excited about making 5 or 6% on your money while still being able to use that money to go make money a second time. That's the secret sauce. You get to make a spread on the money the first time and then go out and do what you do today and make money a second time without any interruptions. So hopefully that helps you, Anonymous. Todd said, who or what is the base company that you start with to start this process? So I mentioned the insurance companies. This is what we do. We're one of the largest in the country. We've got 7,600 clients as of today, or somewhere close. I didn't look, but about 7,600 clients in the US, a couple hundred in Canada. So this is what we do, and this is the only thing we do. So we're specialists in it. We don't sell life insurance. We don't do annuities. We don't do investments. We do infinite banking policies. That's it. And we also do all the back end management of the policy with our implementation and mapping team. So that's a shameless plug because you asked. Anonymous said, will you give the insurance company the $25,000 in addition to the premiums? Not sure what you mean by that. So let's go to the chiropractor for the example, okay? We were putting $25,000 in premium deposits. So that was the amount the chiropractor was saving before. So we just changed where his savings went. Then when we paid all those debts off, remember, we didn't owe Discover, Lowe's, and all those debtors money anymore. So what we did is we just took the money we used to give to the debtors, now that we paid them off using our policy loan, and we take the exact amount, we put it back into our policy as a loan repayment. It's not new dollars. Same thing, if I'm lending money, okay, I put 25 grand. Let's just say I take 20 out and I lend it to somebody. Okay, I then take the interest and I put the interest back in the policy. That's the circle. Money starts on the left side of the circle, comes over to the right side of the circle. That's where we make the money go to work. Buy cars and recapture, pay off debts I showed you, lend money I showed you. You take whatever that interest is or whatever that recapture is and you roll it around the bottom part of the circle and put it back in the policy as a loan repayment. They're not new dollars. They're recaptured dollars, or they're dollars that you make on the outside. So it's not twice, it's just the once. So we just change where the savings goes. Are the policy loans paid back before new money is taken out? Absolutely not. Here's the name. This is a great question, Anonymous, and I think this is a carryover from your previous. Here's the ultimate way you use this. If you get really good at this and you really learn how to do this, which I've got hundreds of videos on my YouTube channel that teach you all sorts of different ways to do this. The goal would be to never have cash value in your policy. Because if all of you are in real estate, or if all of you have a place for money to go to work for you to make more money, why would you ever leave money in the policy? Okay. When we have money available in the policy, we would take a loan and we'd make more money go out to work. I have a big developer, again, one that you all probably know or have heard of. Okay, I lend them a lot of money. Every time I have excess money, when I make a new premium deposit, when every month I got recaptured money coming back into my policy from loans that I've made, from debts that I've paid off, from car payments I make back to myself. So the money's always building. I always take the money in my policy. I take a loan. I probably have, I don't even know, dozens of loans. Okay. I take a loan and I then lend it out to them again, and I get that money making another 12%. So I just constantly keep the money flowing around the circle. The goal is not to repay loans before you take another loan. The goal is to never have any money to take as a loan, because the money's always out. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, I got lots of videos that explain that. John said, when does he pay the loans back to the policy? Well, every time I make money, okay, use the car example. It's an easy one. Remember, I took a loan for my policy and I bought a car. Now, every month, I made $500 monthly payments back to my policy. Those are loan repayments. So after 5 years, because that's how I structured the loan, I would have repaid that loan. So all the money would be back in the policy, including the interest and dividends I earned on all the money the entire time. So when I pay the loans back well, here's another example. I take money from my policy and I lend it out to Jim. Jim's a real estate investor. I lend it to his company. He pays me 12%. I get those interest payments paid back to me, but then Jim sells the property and he pays me back my money, and I put it back in the policy. I paid the loan back, but I didn't pay the loan back because I wanted to. I paid it back because this lender or this borrower that I lent money to gave me my money back. So I put it back in the policy and I wait and I look for another opportunity to make that money go out and work again. That's it. So really, when you're the bank, you set the terms and you set the rules. When you pay the policy loan back, that's up to you how and when. We got a little bit more to learn about how that works by some of these questions. But again, this is the first time you're all riding the backward bicycle. I know some people were kind of upset in the beginning. I was going so slow, but I was really trying to explain why and how you got to change the way you think in order for this concept to work for you. So I spent an awful lot of time getting to the methodologies and the mysteries of money so that then I could show you how it works. So it's not complicated. Just keep thinking of the circle. Modified endowment contract. Ashok, how do you avoid the MEC? You work with somebody that knows how to design these policies within the MEC rules. Again, that's kind of what I'm showing here, how the design works. I'm showing how to design a policy so that it never MECs. But you're not going to do that. You're going to find somebody like us that knows how to build that for you the proper way, so you never have to worry about the MEC, but you want to make sure that the person knows how that works, which we do, and knows how to build it so that it never, ever MECs. That's all you need to know. All right, anonymous, if a person is a pre-existing condition, can they qualify? Depends on what the pre-existing condition is. We'd have to really look into that. So maybe book a call and we can kind of talk about it. Does term insurance work in some way? Oh, I love this question. You know, Dave Ramsey, who says he hates whole life, someday, I've marked my words, someday Dave Ramsey is going to send me a thank you card because he loves term insurance. Why? Because it's cheap. He likes cheap life insurance. And he says, buy term, invest the difference. It's what I did as an advisor until I learned about this. But you see, term insurance is how we design these policies. We use a term rider. So if I may, I'm just going to give you an example of this. And I know we're running up on time, but let's just use here. Let me go one more page. This is the YouTube video I just did today. But what I want to do is I want to show you how we use term insurance in every one of these designs. So I'm just going to pick on this one. 75-25. We call this design the beast. Don't get hung up on it. It's a really good high early cash value policy. So right here, if I put $50,000 into this policy, okay, that's my dump in. And then I put $10,000. How I'm going to design this policy is out of the 10 grand, let's just use the premium I'm going to put in, the base part of the policy, which is the main whole life, I'm only going to put $2,500 to the base. Why? Because the base is what the death benefit costs come from. Okay, that's where the expensive whole life insurance comes from. So I'm limiting the amount into the base, and then I'm putting $7,500 to a separate rider called a paid up additions rider, which basically puts the money in the insurance company's general account, allowing you access to that money and the ability to earn interest and dividends uninterrupted on it. So $7,500 of the 10 goes in to P-Ways, $2,500 goes into the base, but the $50,000 dump in that we put in, that all goes into the paid up addition. To do this, the goal is to put the very lowest death benefit on this policy. So in order to put a low death benefit on, what I got to do is I got to layer in term insurance because the regular base death benefit costs too much money. So what I might do here, and I'm just going to make numbers up, I might have to put $500,000 in term insurance on this policy. But the MEC rule, the IRS code, says that I got to only do that for 7 years because it's the MEC 7 pay, meaning for 7 years, how much am I putting into the policy? That determines how much death benefit I need. So they might say in this design, I need $700,000 worth of death benefit to support 50,000 dump in plus 10,000 premium, okay, for 7 years. So to get that $700,000 in death benefit, I might put a 10-year term rider on here, which only cost me a few $100. Let's just say it cost me $300 a year to do this 10-year term rider. And then only 200,000 of this goes to the regular base death benefit. Okay. So now what I've done is I've significantly reduced the cost to run this whole life policy, but increased the amount of money I can put into the policy, all in the design. And to make these policies work, here's why a lot of agents and advisors don't like this. To make a policy like this work, it requires the agent or the advisor who's building it to take a reduction in their commission of at least this design, 75%. Because the commission is paid on the base, not on the paid up additions. We get a small commission on the PUA, but it's very small. So we would literally take a haircut in our commissions of 75%. But that makes sense, doesn't it? When some person gives, someone else gets. We give up our commission, so you get more cash value. That's how it works. Great question.
Chris, I love this. You are doing so awesome. And I love the questions, guys. Lots of great questions. Chris, so I know we're running short on time. We probably have a lot of questions, guys. A lot of you are still on. And so we won't get to all of them, I don't think, here, but let's answer a few more. But Chris, a lot of people are asking how they reach out to you. What's the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so for this particular one, what I would say to do is go to my website, which is chrisnaugle, Naugle.com. There's going to be, right as soon as you go there, a 90-minute video is going to pop up. Click on that video and schedule a call. If you still are a bit hazy in how it works, just watch the video or the 10-part video series on what I just did, and then book a call with us, and then we'll go through and answer any questions you have, look at how a design could work for you. So it's chrisnaugle.com, and then book a call from that link that pops up.
Okay, and I put that on the chat screen, guys. You guys know the drill. Click on the link there in the chat screen, and that'll take you right there. Chris, I love that. That's awesome. It's basically how you see money and do it differently. We have Dr. Danko, the author of The Millionaire Next Door, the co-author, and he talks about it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's just doing it differently. And I love it. I love it, love it, love it. This is exactly how we teach it, Chris. So good. So it's okay, guys. Let's take a few more questions, Chris. Maybe
Sure.
We have a little more time if you're okay with that.
I'm perfectly fine with that. Just cut me off when we're ready to go. And I'm going to do rapid fire. We still got 34 open questions. So rapid fire. So can a person 78 years old in perfect health, med-free do this? Yes, but the policy won't be as efficient because the cost for the insurance will be more. Book a call with us and we'll show you how to do it without having you be the insured. If you were focused on the death benefit, then do it on yourself. What do you think about variable universal life? I'm going to be perfectly frank. I hate them. I know a lot about them. I used to own one. Don't do it ever. Okay. We're on our way to a recession. A VUL and even an IUL would be the worst things I would want to put money in right now in this economic condition. So I hate VULs. I have a very old UL policy. Can it be replaced? Yes. I also had 2 ULs. I had a VUL and a UL. I replaced both of them with a 1035 exchange, moved that money over into a property designed whole life. Book a call with us and we'll show you how to do that and keep it all tax-free for you. GRCO said, given the underwriting that's involved in writing life insurance policies, can an applicant for a new policy ever be classified uninsurable? Yes. Cancer, there's a whole bunch of things, but it has to be something more severe. So we get people issued all the time. We're the number one GA, general agency, for most of these insurance companies. We have our own underwriters that we work with. So if somebody else couldn't get you approved, there's a very strong possibility we could. Jimmy said, what is the guaranteed cash value increase? Again, let's get on a call. I'll design a policy around your particular criteria and that solves your needs and goals. And then we'll look at your numbers, because otherwise we're just spitballing on the numbers. Because I put a ton of numbers in front of you that showed you all that, but I'd rather, Jimmy, look at your particular situation. Alina said, how do we fund the policy? Meaning, if you want to have money we're drawing from to pay or invest in other big projects, then how do you have a policy with 100,000, for example, to lend out and pay back? Do you do deposits straight in? A great question. It can be put in any way you want. Like I showed you examples of people that just had chunks of money, dumping the money in all at once. You could do that. You could make monthly deposits, which I do on a couple of my policies. Every month, I just systematically and automatically put money into the policies. That's how we save money. That's how we do 401k. So don't change it up. Just do it the way that you're used to saving. We can design them any way you want. Let's see. So in a way, is it like a line of credit conceptually, yet you get paid interest? It would be kind of like using an all-in-one HELOC, but again, it's very different because those vehicles, when you pay interest, you lose the interest. Here, you're earning interest and dividends the entire time. So similar, but different. What the closest thing to this would be if you had a stock account, a big stock account, like several $1 million, and you got a margin account. You could use the margin, pay the margin issuer interest and still earn interest on the stock portfolio. But where this differs is we're earning the interest and dividends on a guaranteed basis and tax-free, where your stock portfolio probably isn't, unless it's a Roth. Okay, Steve said, it sounds too good. I said that in the beginning. It sounds too good to be true. But if it's too good to be true, why is Tony Robbins and Robert Kiyosaki and so many other authors writing about it? It's just because you got to get around the campfire a little longer and learn, because this has been being done for so long. You'd be incredibly surprised. I got a video that talks about the history of IBC on my YouTube channel. Watch it, and you'll see all the people throughout history that have used this. And then you'll understand it's definitely not too good to be true. Nobody wanted to give up their commissions to design the policy the way that it works for you, or they just didn't know how. Can I roll over my IUL into a policy? The answer is yes, but we'd want to look at it, make sure you're out of surrender or close to that, because we hate when people lose money. We want to make sure that this is a win-win for you, not a lose-win. So that would be something we'd look at. If you have zero debts, is there any benefit? Every benefit, Vicky. I just show debts because that's the majority of people. Most people have debts. Vicky, if you don't have debt, welcome to the real show, because now we can talk about how to make significant money without having to pay debts off and recapture the money. We can just make that money go right to work. You can invest in just about anything you want, whatever you know, like, and understand. So there's every benefit in the world. I just showed an example of debt. So can you exchange 31 a term policy into it? You wouldn't want to exchange a term policy. You would either just keep the term policy for its intended use and start one of these for a different use. See, remember, term insurance is just to protect a need. If you've got, let's just use a rental portfolio. You got a rental portfolio of $10 million worth of mortgages. You should probably go out and get about $10 million worth of 20-year term to protect that rental portfolio if you plan to hold it. The money that we put into these policies is used, like I said a bunch of times, for you to be your own bank. It's your private banking system. So we don't want to use the death benefit here to replace term unless you got some really crappy term, which there's a lot of that out there. The reason people buy term and know about term and are sold term is because term is the most profitable insurance product that insurance companies have, bar none. They pay out less than 2% of all term policies. So that's why so much advertising and so many agents are taught to sell term insurance. Why I was. Did she pay probate tax? Not going to really hit that one. There's a lot that goes into the probate side, but no, all the policies, death benefits they bypass probate, but you could get into an estate tax planning. But again, that's where trust planning from a professional would really help you. If I have two universal life policies, both totaling $250,000, is that cash value or death benefit would be my first question. Can your company roll these over? Yes, it's called a 1035 exchange. Absolutely. And we could show you how to do that. We just have to see your policy. John said, it's not the amount of the dividend or how it's calculated, subject to the insurer code discretion each year. Yes. So I think what John's trying to say is who sets the dividend rate? The insurance company does. So then the next question would be, what determines the dividend rate? Usually it's long-term interest rates. So interest rates you get on a 20 or 20 plus year treasury bond. So like 10 and 30 year blends, because that's what insurance companies really derive their long-term gains from on their portfolio, their general account. So if treasury bonds are going up, you can pretty much know that dividends are going next. So what's happening right now? Fed's raising interest rates, dividend or yields on treasuries are going up. So what's next? Probably rising dividends. For the last 34 years, dividends have come down. Now we're on the next cycle. A great time to look at dividend paying whole life. Okay, the next one, won't dumping 2 million in at once create a mech? It would if you don't know how to design it, but I could show you how we did his policy and show you how you could do yours. No, it would not mech. We know how to do it. Mike said, what happens to the money you put in the beginning? What do you mean? You put the money into the policy gets issued, you have a death benefit if you die the next year, and you have cash value you can use immediately in the first 30 days after the policy issues. So the next step is where's that money going to go to work for you? We got to stop thinking about working for money and start thinking like the wealthy and make our money work for us. This is the best way to do it. Marta said, what kind of loans can you make with your money? For instance, can you make I lend money out through what's called privatemoneyclub.com. It's kind of like a dating site for money. There's private lenders and borrowers on that site. Every day you can go on there and see deals at 12 to, gosh, there was a deal just the other day at 18% in a first lien position. I only lend in first lien. For borrow of your own bank, what is the best insurance company? I already hit that. It's only specially designed and engineered whole life. So I've said that a few times, but the only thing that works for the infinite banking concept is specially designed and engineered whole life insurance. I got lots of videos on YouTube explaining exactly why we don't use IULs, VULs, ULs, or anything else. This is what's worked. This is what the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds use. This is what all those wealthy family use. They don't use IULs. They don't use VULs. Banks don't buy IULs. They buy whole life. Ask yourself why. What is the risk regarding depositing money in the insurance company? None. It's guaranteed. The risk is in the first couple of years, you don't have 100% of the money you put in. That's your risk. Or getting denied. Unanimous. My dad did this. It works. Now we need to do this. Perfect. That's awesome. So your dad's doing it. Let's get you doing it so that you can pay off debt, invest in real estate, lend, whatever you want. Can the death benefit be increased, thus allowing larger loans? No, it cannot. Once we build the policy to your specifications, it's locked. Every year, the death benefit goes up based on deposits going in, but you cannot go in and increase the death benefit. Just like that chiropractor, you'd set your second policy up. That's how you'd expand. How do you get paid back? I already answered that. Carolyn, can I use a C Corp? Oh yeah, absolutely. So I didn't get into COLI, company-owned life insurance, but Samsung, Apple, many other companies. It's in that history of IBC video on my YouTube. All those, you can do it. Let's just say all your money's in a corporate structure. You could keep the money in your corporate structure, have the policy owned by the corporation. You as the owner or the key employee could be the insured, and the corporation could just use this just like a bank account. It's done all the time. Man,
You're
these are
getting some
great
pretty good,
questions.
Chris. I love it. You're shooting them. I love it. So guys, go on the site. A lot of you still have questions. Go to chrisnaugle.com. Totally suggest that. Jimmy had a question about booking online, Chris. Book it on your site. Options other than book a call with a money mentor. What is work with Chris in Money School or the Money Multiplier?
Well, we're not really a coaching company. So we don't have some coaching program we sell. In Private Money Club, we do, but that's really specific to private lending. So to work with us is quite simple. It's free. We do webinars 5 times every week. You could join us on the webinars. All that's on chrisnaugle.com. So the good news is you don't have to pay me to help you. The bad news is you can't pay me to help you. I don't do coaching. We do it all for free. We give our best stuff away for free every day. Check my YouTube channel out at thechrisnaugle.com or at thechrisnaugle on YouTube.
Okay. Well, it looks like we got a few more left. You want to knock them out and then wrap it up? Are we good?
Listen, if you'll give it to me, I'll knock these things right out.
We're staying on. If you're okay with it, guys, thank you so much.
Listen, I'm here to serve, so let me just get them done. Unanimous said, is there interest you have to pay on the loan from the whole life? Absolutely, but it's simple interest, and the interest is only paid back one time per year. So the interest is also, this is critical, the interest that the insurance company charges you and all the carriers we use is less than the interest and dividends they pay you. So you're making more than what they're charging you. So again, remember I said with the bank, they make money on a spread. You too are making money on a spread, but your spread every year goes up because of compound interest. Great question. Patricia said, can you use a self-directed IRA to fund the premium? No, that is a self-dealing. So that is absolutely forbidden. You can never, ever take money from an IRA or self-directed IRA or any qualified plan and put it into life insurance without triggering a taxable event. Great question. Wash said, what happens at the end of the term life? We drop it. We get rid of it. We don't need it. It's like drag, or it's like building a super sleek race car. And then on the front of it, you just put a big push ram. That's going to be a big drag. The push ram is the term. So we want the term off the policy after the 8th or 10th year. So we just get rid of it. Let's see. Jimmy said, if the policy gets maxed out, do you have to keep paying the minimum premium? Great question, Jimmy. So how it works is in the 10th year of any policy design we do, you could elect to do what's called an RPU. You could stop putting money into the policy. But let me ask you this, Jimmy. If you had a policy that you put 10 grand in and you could take $14,000 out, would you ever stop putting 10,000 in? Just asking for a friend. You wouldn't. And you know what? Even if you didn't have the 10 grand, give me or somebody else a call. I'll lend you the 10 grand at 10, 20%. You then put it in the policy, take the interest back out, pay me off. You still made a whole bunch of money. There's no way anyone would ever want to stop putting money into the policy when it's at that efficiency point. But you can after the 10th year if you wanted. The anonymous said, aren't loan rates on policies also increasing? They are. So loan interest rates on policies are indeed going up. They don't follow prime like the Fed rate, but they do go up. But as they go up, usually dividends go up. So it's a moving scale. I've been doing this over 20 years and I've looked at data for over 30 years and I've never once seen a single time in history where what you're making is less than what you're paying on loans. And I think that's by design. So great question. 2 more. How much for your services to make this happen? I got bad news. Nothing. You don't have to pay us anything. We're going to design the policy because we're not paid by you. I know there's a lot of folks out there that charge to build the policies and give you all this stuff. We don't. I do it all for free because we get paid by the insurance company. We just do this for thousands of people. So therefore, even though we make 60 to 90% less in commission, we're still making a lot because we're picking up nickels and pennies on thousands of people. So you can't hire us. You don't have to pay us. We'll do it all for free. You just got to get started. So go to chrisnaugle.com and book a call. Last one, Jared, is it possible to use non-qualified money? Absolutely. That's what we use. All non-qualified funds. That's exactly what we use. Whew. That was
Whoa,
great, man.
Chris, you are good, quick and fast. I love that. I'm impressed.
Questions.
Great
Wow.
questions, guys.
Man, I know we got off to a slow start. That's always by design. And when I do these webinars, people are always like, get to the point. And I won't do it because what I did in the beginning is so critical to get you in the right mindset to understand the rest that I've literally tried doing it the opposite way and it fails every time. So thank you, folks, for staying with me in the beginning. The end was the grand finale.
And we hope everybody recognizes that Chris is a good guy. He's here to serve. And we love that. We've worked with other people in the past, and they're really all about, Chris, it's true. A lot of people are burned by this over the years, and you probably get this over and over because insurance is so expensive, high commission. Chris is here to serve. He wants to do that above and beyond anybody else we've ever talked to. And so we're excited to work with you, Chris. Thank you so much for your time tonight. This is fantastic, guys.
Such an honor. Thank you so much. And folks, thank you so much for your questions. They were really freaking good. And I appreciate good questions because it means you were paying attention, learning something new, and trying to better your financial position. So kudos to all you.
Chris, thank you so much. Everybody, make sure to go to Chris Naugle, sign up and meet with this team. They're a good team. They'll be happy to help you out. If you have questions, guys, reach out to us too. Glad to help you. We'll be teaching more on how to protect different entities next week. Everybody, thank you so much. Chris, thanks for your time again tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Look for the recording. Everybody, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Have a great night.